Hello everyone and welcome to the next part of the line-by-line explanation of the last lesson written by Alphonse Stock. Now, before resuming the chapter, I would like to give a brief explanation of what we did in the first class. As I said, I would be including a little Hindi too. So let's have a brief explanation of what we studied in the last video. So this chapter has been set, the story has been set at the time of Franco-Prussian War. The France and Prussia का war चल रहा था. France was defeated and an order came that French will no longer be taught in the districts of Alsace and Lorraine. Only German would be taught. Now, due to this, all the French teachers, they were asked to leave. And one such teacher was M. Hamel. Now, here comes a student, Franz. Franz was getting late for the school. And he was also very afraid that he will be getting scolded by the teacher, M. Hamel. Why? Because he hasn't prepared the rule for participles. Now you all see, जब आपको teacher homework देती है और आपको नहीं prepare करते हो, तो आपको भी डर लगता है ना that the teacher will scold you. In the same manner, Franz was also afraid. He was like, I haven't prepared my homework, I haven't done anything. तो अब तो M. Hamel से डांट पड़नी पक्का है. So now while he was going, he also thought of missing his classes. I thought that I should not attend the class. I should spend my day out of the doors, out of the school, bunking my classes. As it is, he said, the weather is so warm outside, it is so bright, the birds are chirping, the soldiers are marching, they're drilling. So it's better that I should remain outside rather than going in the class. But then he controlled his thoughts. He said, no, I should go to the class. And while he was crossing the town hall, he happened to see a huge crowd of people in front of the town hall. Why? Because a notice was displayed on the bulletin board. Now, आपके स्कूल में भी bulletin board होता है where important notices are displayed, and here also in front of the town hall there was a bulletin board where important notices were displayed. And he said, are all the bad news, whether of lost battles, any of order of commander, or any draft, it all had come from there. Now what? He says, अब क्या बुरा होना बचा है? Now what is the notice all about? But he then also didn't pay any attention to it because he was afraid to go to the school, to reach the school as fast as he can. And while he was going, a blacksmith who was standing there, he stopped him. He said, it's okay, kid, there's no need to go so fast. He said, ठीक है, you have enough time to go to school, relax. Now, Franz thought maybe he's making fun of me. Why? Because I was already late. I may get scolded also, and he's asking me to relax. So Franz hurried off fast. And hurriedly, when he reached the school, he found something very unusual. कुछ बहुत अजीब था. There was nothing as usual days. So now during the usual days of the school, there used to be so much noise and commotion and hustle and bustle all around. There used to be so much commotion, noises of the students, loud noises of the teachers repeating the lessons in unison, noise of the rulers rapping on the table, teachers scolding the students. But today, everything was quiet. सब कुछ बहुत शांत, everything was very much still, very much quiet. But then what happened? He had a plan in his mind. Franz, he thought he had a strategy. He says, if there will be so much of noise and so much commotion, I will just sneak inside the class. मैं चुप के अंदर से चला जाऊंगा, इतना ज़्यादा शोर होगा तो, and M. Hamel को पता ही नहीं चलेगा. और जब पता ही नहीं चलेगा तो I will not get scolded. So he thought he had a strategy. He had a plan that he would sneak inside the class while in so much commotion, and he will not get scolded. But then what? Did his plan succeed? No, poor Franz. His plan did not succeed. Why? Because there was so much stillness, everything was very quiet. So now he had to enter the class in front of everyone, and there was no scope of escapism. So when he entered the class, M. Hamel, he did not scold him. On the contrary, he was very kind to him. M. Hamel ne to usko डांटा ही नहीं. When he entered the class, M. Hamel very gently asked him to take his seat. M. Hamel said, come on Franz, you're already very late. अपनी सीट पे जाकर बैठो, हम तो तुम्हारे बिना ही ये लेसन स्टार्ट करने वाले थे. He said, we were going to begin this lesson without you only. So come on, go back and take your seat. And as soon as Franz took his seat, he again found something unusual. उसने कुछ और unusual notice किया, something strange. And what was it? M. Hamill had put on his best clothes. He was wearing his green coat with frilled shirt and a silk embroidery cap. That means he was dressed very nicely. Now, Franz was a little confused. He was like, ये इतना अच्छे से dress up होकर क्यों आए हैं? Today, there is no special occasion because M. Hamill used to wear this dress only on the special occasion like inspection and prize days. और आज तो उसमें से कुछ नहीं है. So why he is dressed up so nicely? He was quite amazed. Like, आज ऐसी क्या खास बात है that M. Hamill is dressed up very nicely? And also when he looked around himself, he saw that the backbenches of the classes were full. They were full with the elderlies of the villages, the postmaster, the mayor, and several other people besides them. The Hauser too. So now he said, usually the backbenches of the classes used to remain empty and there was no one. But today the class was full with the children, the little ones, and the elderlies also were there now. They were sitting at the back benches to attend the class. So again he thought, what is happening? Kya ho raha hai? And he also saw that the Hauser, he was holding a book in his hand, a primer in his hand. A primer क्या होता है? Primer is a book which is used to learn the basics of anything. जब भी आपको किसी चीज का कुछ नया स्टार्ट करना होता है तो उसका बेसिक्स, सपोज अल्फाबेट्स लर्न करने हैं या वर्ड मीनिंग ढूंढना है कि इसका मीनिंग क्या होगा, तो उसके लिए वो प्राइमर यूज किया जाता है. He was using a primer and that primer was thumbed from the edges. Thumbed from the edges means जो उसकी बुक का कॉर्नर ऑफ द पेजेस थे वो फोल्ड हो गए थे. Why? जब आप देखते हो जब वो बुक पुरानी हो जाती है तो उसके पेजेस साइड से कॉर्नर्स फोल्ड हो जाते हैं. So in the same manner, he wanted to say that the book, the primer which he was having, it was not a new one. कोई brand new primer नहीं था उसके पास. It was an old primer, a primer that was already used by someone, and now he was using it because the primer had marks in it, marks of being used. So he says he was having a primer with his spectacles and he was also attending the class. Now what happened? Now M. Hamill, as soon as he was observing all this, he heard M. Hamill's words. M. Hamill, he said, he addressed them all as my children because at that time they were in the class and they were all his students. So he addressed them all as my children and he said, my children, this is the last French lesson. He said, he addressed them all as my children. He said, this is the last French lesson today that I'm going to teach. And from tomorrow, a new master will come who will teach you German. And he also told them that the order has come from Berlin that now German will be taught in the districts of Alsace and Lorraine and not French. Listening this, it came as a great shock, as a big shock to Franz. He was very much shocked. To बहुत ज़्यादा shock था, upset था that how all of a sudden and when it all happened. And then he remembered, maybe this was the news because of which there was a huge crowd in front of the town hall. क्या पता शायद इसी की वजह से इतनी ज़्यादा भीड़ थी. There were so many people standing in front of the town hall. And maybe, and he's, slowly and steadily, he tried to understand that, okay, this is the reason why M. Hamill is dressed up so nicely. It is in the honor of this last lesson that he's going to teach us. He wants to give honor. He wants to show honor to this language. He wants to give respect to this language. And then he says, maybe this is the reason why the back benches of the class are filled with elderlies of the village. That is why the people from the village, they're gathered here because they're sorry. Sorry because whole their life they did not pay attention to their studies. पूरी जिंदगी उन्होंने नहीं सोचा that they should have studied. And today the time has come जब उनसे ये chance भी छिन गया that they are not able to study anymore. So he says their villagers are maybe here because they're sorry for themselves that they could not attend the lessons before. And also they want to show respect to M. Hamill. Why? Because he was teaching them since 40 years, for his 40 years of faithful service, for his 40 years of dedicated service. And then he was also side by side feeling sorry for himself. He said, maybe I myself am responsible for not learning the lessons. If I would have not spent the day outdoors, he says, agar main apna time bahar na waste karta, if I would not have gone spending my time seeking birds' eggs, spending my day out of the class, I would have known how to read and how to write French. He says, मुझे तो ये भी नहीं पता कि एक how to write in French, I cannot even speak properly. I cannot even speak my mother tongue properly. And maybe I will not be able to learn this anymore. Why? Because from the very next day, a new teacher will come and he will teach them German. So then there'll be no chance to learn French. So he says, I am to be blamed. I should have attended the class. I should have taken my lessons seriously. If I would have done that, I would not be facing this problem. And at the same time, he was feeling sorry for M. Hamill. At the same moment, he forgot that about his ruler, about his scoldings, about everything. And he was feeling sorry for him, that after so long, after giving so many years of service here, he had to leave this place. He had to go from here. So he was feeling sorry for M. Hamill too, that now he will have to leave from this place. And this obviously was a very sad moment for everybody. And also, he says that if I would have not gone out, if I would have attended my lessons, maybe I would have been able to write. And now while he was wondering everything, suddenly he hears his name. M. Hamill ne uska naam bulaya. He wanted him to recite the rule for participles that he had given him homework. So now he said, when my name was called and he stood up, he says, I tried my best. मैंने बहुत कोशिश की and I put in all my effort so that I could recite the rule of participles at one go, very loud and very clearly. He said, I tried my best. मैंने बहुत कोशिश की कि मैं वो rule of participles बिना किसी problem के, बिना किसी mistake के, बहुत clearly सबको सुना सकूं. But unfortunately, he was not able to do that. He says, but मैं नहीं कर पाया. I got mixed up in the first few words only. And he got very embarrassed. He got ashamed. Why? Because he did not only prepare for the rule of participles, he did not prepare his homework. So he said, I did not attend the classes carefully and therefore I was very embarrassed. I could not speak the rule of participles. And at that point of time, M. Hamill said that I will not scold you, Franz. मैं तुम्हें डांटूंगा नहीं. I will not scold you. Because you are not only to be blamed for this. He says, you are not only the one who is to be blamed for everything. In fact, your parents are too. He says, your parents are equally to be blamed for this. Why? Because your parents were more interested in sending you to the work so that they could earn a little more money rather than sending you to the school. तुम्हारे parents भी तो तुम्हें काम पे भेजना चाहते थे so that you can earn more money rather than sending you to the classes. And he said, I myself am to be blamed too. Why? Because I sent you to water my flowers instead of giving you time to learn your lessons. And whenever I wanted to go for fishing, I just gave you a holiday. And this he says that all of us, we need to think about this. We all are disappointed with ourselves. Why only you? Even we should be ashamed of ourselves. You did not take your lessons seriously. Your parents, they did not send you to the school because they wanted you to earn money. And I, whenever I wanted to have a leisure time, I gave you a holiday. So he said that even I am to be blamed for this. And we also discussed yesterday that till this part, we have two important questions that can be asked in your examination. First was, what were the unusual and the strange things that were encountered by Franz? And to answer this, I already told you. First was the huge crowd in front of the town hall. Next, when he reached M. Hamill's garden, he noticed there was no noise, there was no commotion. Everything was quiet still. When he entered into the class, M. Hamel did not scold him. The dressing of the M. Hamel, the occupation of the last benches of the class by the villagers. These all points are to be mentioned while answering the question, what all strange and unusual things were seen by M. Hamel? And also, the next question which can be asked, which was also asked this year in the board examination is, what role does the society play in the education of the children? Give instances from the chapter. Now, if you have to give instances from the chapter, you can say that society obviously plays a very important role. As if the society is not serious towards the education of the children, for example, first, here in the lesson, Franz was not serious about his studies. He used to go and spend his time out whenever he did not feel like attending the classes. The parents were not ready to send their children to school because they wanted them to earn money. And M. Hamel was also not responsible enough, as he sent the students to water his flowers, instead of giving them the time to learn. And also, whenever he wanted him to go for fishing, he gave them a holiday. So this is how you're going to attempt these two questions. Moving further, while he was saying this, he was also explaining them that how beautiful the French language is. He says, M. Hamel says that French is the most beautiful, the clearest, and the most logical language. And he says that you should, that if you have this language with you, if you have this French language with you, if you have your mother tongue, if you hold your mother tongue, if you guard your mother tongue, then it acts as a key to the prison. वो कहता है कि अगर आप अपनी मदर टंग को जानते हो, अगर आप उसे बहुत रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी उसको अपने पास संभाल के रखते हो, you have it with you, then it acts as an identity. वो आपकी identity की तरह act करती है, your identity which shows your identification of your country, your nation, as well as it unites all the people of the countrymen together. And he says, as long as you people stay united, it gives you a sense of identity. तो आपके पास एक key होती है that it acts as a key, और उससे आप अपना freedom खुद ले सकते हो. You can free yourself from any kind of slavery. And after that, he said that we had a lesson in grammar. Now we'll resume the chapter. He said after that, he explained us, he read us the lesson, उन्होंने हमें lesson समझाया, and at that time, I was able to understand the lesson which he was teaching very much clearly. उसने बोला कि मैं उसके बाद वो सब अच्छे से समझ पा रहा था जो वो पढ़ा रहे थे. Maybe because I was paying more attention, and that is why it was seeming more easy. Says usually maybe I was physically present. मैं physically तो present होता था, but maybe मेरा mind कहीं और ही होता था. Like usually ऐसा होता है students के साथ in the class, physically present होते हैं, but when a teacher asks them a question, they're not able to answer क्योंकि दिमाग कहीं और था. In the same manner, Franz, he says, maybe I'm physically present. Usually I'm physically present in the class, but today, when I'm listening it very carefully, I'm able to understand everything that M. Hamel is trying to teach me. Also, he says that maybe M. Hamel today is teaching with a lot of patience. वो बहुत अच्छे से, बहुत आराम से समझा रहे हैं, जो patience पे usually show नहीं करते. But then he says, it seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew. He says, मुझे ऐसा लग रहा था, it seemed that this poor man, M. Hamel, he wanted to give us all his knowledge. वो हमें अपनी सारी knowledge देना चाहते थे at one go, at one stroke. And he wanted to put it all in their minds so that they do not face any kind of problem in future. After the grammar, we had a lesson in writing. That day, M. Hamel had new copies for us. He says after the grammar, they had a lesson in writing. उनका writing में lesson था, and M. Hamill had brought new copies for all of them, which were beautifully decorated, and in beautiful round handwriting it was written France essays, France essays. The copies were new, and they were beautifully decorated with the round handwriting. And what was written on the copies? क्या लिखा हुआ था उसके ऊपर? France essays, France essays. They looked like the little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom, hung from the rod at the top of our desks. He says उस time पे एक ऐसा patriotism का environment था, situation थी. It was feeling as if the flags of our country are floating in the schoolroom. That हमारी जो desks है उसके ऊपर हमारे flags float कर रहे हैं. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work and how quiet it was. He says, if you were there, you should have seen how dedicated each and every person sitting in the class, whether it's the elderlies of the villages, middle-aged children like Franz, and the very littlest ones, even the youngest of the children, they were so much dedicated in their work. The only sound was the scratching of pens over the paper. He says the only sound one could hear was the scratching of pens over the paper. सिर्फ उसी की आवाज आ रही थी. And he also says once some beetles flew in, but nobody paid any attention to them. Not even the littlest ones. He says एक बार कुछ flies अंदर आई भी, but nobody actually paid any attention to them. किसी ने उन पर ध्यान नहीं दिया. Why? Because everybody was so much attentive, so much dedicated in their work. And also everybody was very serious. And he says also the littlest ones, those very small children who were there, even they were trying to prove that they know French. And even they were trying their level best that they can write in French correctly, in a right manner. On the roof of the pigeons cooed very low. And I thought to myself, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? Now he says, while we were working, I heard the sound of cooing from the roof and the pigeons were making that sound. And he said, at that point of time, I thought, will they even make them sing in German? He says, kya hamari language? They're imposing their rule on us. They can change our language. They want us to learn German instead of French now. But can they even force the pigeons which are on the rooftop? क्या वो उन्हें भी force कर सकते हैं to sing in German? Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw M. Hamill sitting motionless in his chair, gazing first at one thing, then at another, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little schoolroom. He says, while I was writing and when I saw M. Hamill, he was just sitting in his chair, looking everywhere, as if he wanted to fix everything in his mind, as if वो हर चीज की एक memory capture कर रहे हैं in a form of photograph in his mind, that he wanted to take it along with him. Fancy, for 40 years he had been there in the same place. He says, 40 years हो गए, it's been 40 years he's here, he's teaching. He has his garden here, he has his room above the classroom, and in this room he teaches. So he's sitting here and he's seeing at everything. हर चीज को ऐसे देख रहे हैं as if he will capture everything. हर चीज की एक image capture करके as a memory he will store it in his mind. Just like that, only the desks and benches had worn smooth. The walnut trees in the gardens were taller, and the hopvine that he had planted himself twined about the windows to the roof. He says everything was very much similar. His garden was there, his room was there above the classroom. And also, he said, but only the benches, the furniture of the classroom was worn out. It had become old. थोड़ा सा पुराना हो गया था, थोड़ा सा घिस गया था. He says the walnut trees in the gardens were taller. The walnut trees had grown taller in the garden. And the hopvine that he had planted himself twined about the windows to the roof. जो हॉफाइन जो प्लांट उन्होंने लगाया था, it had grown taller. वो इतना लंबा हो गया था कि वो विंडो से रूफ तक पहुंच गया था. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all, poor man. To hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing their trunks, for they must leave the country next day. He says कितना ज़्यादा problem है. It is so difficult for him. How much difficult it could be for him. He has given so many years of his service in this classroom for us, and now he will have to leave all of this. And now it feels so hurt that he will have to leave all of this, and that he can even hear that his sister is packing all his clothes and everything in a trunk, because they will have to leave this country the very next day. कितना डिफिकल्ट होगा वो एम हैमिल के लिए अपनी सारी चीजें, अपनी सारी मेमोरीज को यहाँ पर छोड़कर जाना. And how difficult it might be for him when he was hearing the noise from upstairs from his room, where his sister was packing all his baggage in the trunk. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. He says, but still he was very patient. And he had the courage to hear every lesson. He says he had the courage to hear everything the students were saying, the children were saying. He was hearing all that they had to say, and that too till the very last. Pura sun rahe the. He was not cutting them in between. He was hearing them very carefully. After the writing, we had a lesson in history. And then the babies chanted their ba, be, bi, bo, bo. Now he says after writing, they had their lesson in history. And as the babies chant, usually जब आप छोटे बच्चों को देखते हो क्लास में, जब टीचर कोई चीज डिसाइड करता है like A, B, C, D, तो बच्चे, the children, they also recite it after the teacher. In the same manner here, M. Hamill was reciting the chapter, and everybody, all the students, everybody sitting in the classroom was reciting beside after him. Down there at the back of the room, old Hausa had put on his spectacles and, holding his primer in both the hands, spelled the letters with him. He says back in the classroom, last में जो old Hausa बैठा हुआ था, he had his book, and with the help of his primer, he was also speaking. He was also speaking like everyone else after the M. Hamill. You could see that he was crying. His voice trembled with emotion. And at that time, he was so sad that he was crying. While reading, his voice was trembling, his voice was shaking. He was feeling so emotional. कि उसकी आवाज पे भी वो कपकपाहट आ रही थी. And it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. He says it was as funny, we wanted to laugh, as well as it was an emotional situation for us also that we wanted to cry. Now, he says that the old Hauser, because he was so emotional, everybody was so sad, everybody was so serious, that while reading the chapter, he was crying. He was crying because he was sad. And because of that, his voice was also trembling. Uski voice bhi kapkapa rahi thi. His voice was also shaking. And he was saying it, and Franz says that it was so funny. वो इतना funny था कि उसको देखकर हम सब हंसना भी चाह रहे थे, और at the same time रोना भी चाह रहे थे. हंसना इसलिए चाह रहे थे because it was funny. रोना इसलिए चाह रहे थे because it was the sad moment for each and every one of them. They all never wanted this day to come. How well I remember it, that last lesson. He says, मुझे बिल्कुल अच्छे से याद है. I very well remember this last lesson. All at once, the church clock struck 12. Then the Angelus, and at the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussian returning from the drill sounded under our windows. He says, and all at once, at the same moment, the church clock struck 12. It was 12 o'clock, and at that moment, the Prussians, they were also returning from the drill. M. Hamill stood up, very pale in his chair. He says, M. Hamill, he stood up, very pale. That means his face, uska face jo tha, it became yellow because he was sad. I never saw him look so tall. Now this line, I never saw him look so tall, this means मैंने उतने इतना tall नहीं देखा, means he's giving respect to him. I have never seen M. Hamill with so much respect as he was doing it at that time. He never gave M. Hamill that much of respect before, as he was giving him that time. He says, I never saw him look so tall. He was giving him that respect. कि मैंने उन्हें इतनी respectfully पहले कभी नहीं देखा, जैसे मैं उस दिन देख रहा था. My friends, said he. I, but something choked him. He could not go on. Franz says that even M. Hamill wanted to say something. He even addressed him, my friends, but he could not speak anything. His voice choked because he was very emotional. He was getting very sad. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on with all his might, he wrote as large as he could. फिर उसके बाद M. Hamill, he stood up, he took a piece of chalk, and he started writing on the board with all his might, with all the courage he had. He started writing, Vive la France. Vive la France means long live France. In that, he was giving his blessings, a ray of hope that one day France will also become free from the slavery of Prussians. It will at one time gain its independence. Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall. And then he was so sad that he could not speak a word. कुछ बोल ही नहीं पाया वो. He just leaned his head against the wall. And without saying a word, he just made a gesture. As if एक sign से, just with the gesture of his hand, he asked them to leave the class. That the school is dismissed and you all may go. So this is how sad he was, that he could not even speak a word. And with all his he could say was with this gesture, with the movement of his hand, was that the school is dismissed and you may go. So this is here we end with the second part of our chapter 2. We'll discuss some important questions of this chapter in the next video. Again, I would like to say, if you find this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon, and your reviews are always welcome in the comment box. Thank you. Stay tuned for all videos. Take care.